one of the beats that I'm thinking about using in a session in LA. I like this one because it had a roster feel, so that's more international. It's not just hip hop. You know, I'm a cat from a small town, you know what I mean? We know how to carry ourselves to where you don't stick out. You know, you want to lay as low as you can, but I have to come out to a certain extent and say what I know and say my story so people can see what I've been through.
Hello?
I'm at the door.
Oh, all right, I'm coming. Mrs. Harvey here.
Good to see you, Mom.
I don't talk about it very much. And, I look at Lee some of the time and I just get angry. Because, have you ever seen a picture of him before he got that cancer? Well, there he is up there on the wall. See up there with his brother? That's him with the blue shirt on. And that's him over there with Arceli. He was living here when he got that job. And they had 2 kids, and there was a sofa bed here at one time. It lit out from a couch into a bed.
Yeah, the boys used to sleep on the couch. You would sleep on the floor where you can lay down. So we just laid down and we got our rest. And Araceli got up and went to work to 2 jobs. And I did whatever I could when I could. You know, we had the 2 boys, and it was tough. It was tight in here. We got through it, though.
He'd been unemployed for so long.
Yeah.
And when he got that job, he was just ecstatic.
Yeah, that job saved me from the bottom. They know that I'm sick from this stuff, but I don't have any power. This is about food, this is about seed, this is about health, this is about the soil, this is about environment. This is not an Lee Johnson story. This is bigger than me.
Cats are in the flower bed. A red hawk rides the sky. I guess I should be happy just to be alive. But we have poisoned everything and oblivious to it all. With cell phone zombies babble through the shopping malls. So who will come to save the day? Mighty Mouse, Superman. Bad dreams are good in the great plan.
Okay, listen, I want to say it again and again until this registers with you. Everybody in this room does wonderful things every day. The cases you handle are so important to those people that you handle those cases for. But I want you to think about what you're doing as far as the legacy that you want to leave. Every time you come to this place in Vegas twice a year, you're in one of the few places that lawyers can go where you have the opportunity to do so much more. I want you to raise your thinking to that, because we have a dysfunctional Department of Justice in this country. And I'm just asking you, let's all think about that the next couple of days.
Good afternoon, everybody. The next presentation is in regard to the Roundup litigation. And we have an excellent panel here with Amy Wagstaff. Also, you have Robin Greenwald. So please welcome the panel.
Thank you very much. So Robin and I have been working on this litigation, and it's amazing as we go through this country and litigate this case, the feelings that people have towards Monsanto. And it's not just related to this case, but there is a complete and utter hatred towards this company. And as we go through the discovery, we've actually learned why that is, and it's not unfounded.
Maybe 3 days after I filed our first case, Amy called me. She was planning on filing as well. And then, so we started talking, and then trying to remember when we met Mike.
We filed, I believe, the second case in America. And an old friend of ours, Amy Wagstaff, called up and she said, "Hey, you just filed a case, I have one."
And so we started to meet as a small group, and we would have meetings either in Denver or in Washington, D.C., and we would share what we had learned.
We were like circulating documents around, can you believe this, can you believe that? And like right before our eyes, the story really started to unfold.
And that's how we formed that inner group that became the executive committee for running these cases.
And we worked out a plan of how we could do what had really never been done before, and that is to hold Monsanto accountable.
Some people call us gamblers, and I guess we are in some way, but you know, it's a necessary part of our society to help keep big companies in line.
This case really is about choice. It's about the right of every single person in this room to make a choice about what chemicals they expose themselves, their family, or their children to. And really nobody has a right to deprive us of information that we need to make that choice. If a chemical company sells a product and they know or suspect that that product can cause cancer, they have to warn. And if you don't warn, and somebody gets hurt because of that, then I personally believe that you should be responsible for the consequences. Now, the judge is going to instruct you on the law, but this is just common sense. This case, it's about a chemical company, Monsanto. and its multi-billion-dollar product Roundup.
Popular weed killer, Roundup.
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 This is the most widely used weed killer ever.
The active ingredient in Roundup is the world's most
popular weed killer, glyphosate.
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 Monsanto brought the herbicide glyphosate to the market in the 1970s under the name Roundup.
You were going to learn that for at least the last 40 years, since the 1980s, Monsanto has known that the primary ingredient in Roundup can induce tumors in laboratory animals. And starting in 1998 and moving forward, there has been study after study showing that, in fact, the use of Roundup is associated with a specific type of cancer. That cancer is called non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
My cancer is called cutaneous T-cell lymphoma, non-Hodgkin's.
Non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Peripheral T-cell.
Mantle cell lymphoma.
B-cell lymphoma. B-cell lymphoma.
Diffuse large B-cell lymphoma.
Large diffuse B-cell.
Diffuse large B-cell
non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, if I got all that right.
The evidence will show that Monsanto has known this for over 20 years. But instead of just warning and telling consumers, hey, these studies show this stuff can cause cancer, Monsanto has refused. They have fought science, and you will see evidence that shows that Monsanto has specifically gone out of its way to bully scientists and to fight independent researchers who are finding conclusions outside of the Monsanto corporate umbrella. And the consequences of that conduct are why we're here today. Because of what Monsanto has done, Mr. Johnson was not given a choice about using Roundup. He truly believed it was safe.
Why didn't Monsanto warn? Monsanto didn't warn because the science says that glyphosate-based products don't cause cancer. Monsanto didn't warn because that was the conclusion that the EPA had come to. Monsanto didn't warn because the scientific evidence is overwhelming that glyphosate-based products do not cause cancer. And the evidence really breaks down into two basic...
I knew that they didn't have much concern for me, and they planned on fighting this to the end, and there's nothing that I can do except tell my story, try to remember what I went through.
Mr. Johnson, where do you live?
Vallejo, California.
Okay. Are you married, Mr. Johnson?
I am married.
And tell us what your wife's name, if you would.
Araceli Johnson.
Okay. And when did you meet Araceli?
About 13 years ago.
Where did you guys meet? What were the circumstances?
I met him at Napa Valley College pre-algebra class. When I first saw him walking in, it was like I saw him in the slow motion. It could just grab my eyes. And I was like, wow, you know, someone I want to get to know, but how do I get close to him?
The last day of class, I slipped her sister a note. It said, call me, I want to be your friend, and here's my number. I said, can you get this to your sister?
And I look at it, I read it, I smile, and I just walk away. I just walk away. And I'm super shy. My sister gave him a number.
Here's her number too. She wanted to give it to you.
I was like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? I hope he calls me. And he did.
When she got pregnant with Ali, she moved in with us, and it's been like that ever since. We got married downtown Napa. It was a quiet ceremony. Yeah, we went and done it.
And how long have you been married?
You know, object and to make it a standing objection to all questions and answers that are outside the scope of the examination of Mr. Johnson done under oath.
So this right here is the maintenance and operations yard that I would come into, and I would get my truck, and over here in that little shack where you see all the warning signs, we kept a 50-gallon drum of what I call Ranger Pro, what people call Roundup, but we call it Ranger Pro because we were using a higher concentrate.
Did you ever receive any education or training about Ranger Pro?
The only training that I was given about Ranger Pro was with Miss Leanne Schroeder, who came in.
And do you remember anything that Mrs. Schroeder told you about Ranger Pro?
Objection vague.
The main thing that sticks out to me that I remember is that she told us it was safe enough to drink. I used to wear the chemical-resistant gloves. I used to wear a full Tyvek suit. They call it as a waterproof, chemical-proof suit, supposedly, right? You can get up to a certain amount of wetness before it gets inside your clothes. I would put that stuff on before I started mixing and loading. I would get everything I needed to go out and spray. That was my job, to spray all facilities throughout the district, the fields and fence lines and hillsides and things like that.
We're looking back at literally decades of use of this product, of studies of this product, of testing of this product. You're going to hear about human studies. You're going to hear about animal studies. You're going to hear about cell studies. Those are the studies that the EPA specifically asks for to determine whether something's carcinogenic or not.
So let's look at the science. First, we have animal carcinogenicity studies. As I said, these occur in mice and rats. So of the 13 mice and rat studies, there's only one study that didn't have any tumors that were significant. All of them have signals in some capacity or another. A lot of tumors being seen. In the last 4 studies, we see malignant lymphoma. And Dr. Portier is going to walk you through exactly each one of those.
All told, how long were you working in government service and public health issues?
Let's see, 1978 to 2013, 35, 36 years.
How long have you been involved in these exact type of rodent studies?
Oh, 40 years.
I spent my entire career figuring out how to analyze and evaluate this type of data to make the best recommendation science can give you about these data in terms of decisions about what to do to protect the public.
What is your conclusion about whether or not glyphosate can cause cancer in animals?
There is no doubt in my mind that glyphosate can cause tumors in laboratory animals. There's just no doubt.
Can you tell the jury what Exhibit 342 is?
This is the report that comes from the Environmental Protection Agency, and specifically here from their Cancer Assessment Review Committee.
Can you read that for the jury?
Based on the weight of evidence, glyphosate is classified as, in quotation marks, not likely to be carcinogenic to humans.
If you had just the animal studies, could you put it in the lowest category?
Definitely not.
If you had just the mechanistic studies, could you put it in the lowest category?
No.
If you had just the epidemiology, could you put it in the lowest category?
No, I could not.
But if you have all 3, like we do here, is it scientifically justified to put it in that category?
It is not scientifically justified to call glyphosate not likely to be carcinogenic to humans.
And did you raise this issue with the EPA?
I did raise this issue with the EPA.
Why did you do that?
Again, because they've inappropriately applied the science time after time and for time to reach that conclusion, and it's an inappropriate conclusion for this particular compound.
Now, glyphosate, this is the chemical equation. For those of you who can read chemical equations, it was actually originally discovered in the 1960s, and it wasn't discovered as an herbicide or a weed killer. It was patented originally as a stripper for industrial boilers. Then they discovered, actually, hey, this thing kills weeds.
clean field means that the only plant alive is the one you want. But the curse of the land is the weeds. They have to be sprayed. So one way or the other, when you're doing broad-scale farming, it's really hard not to accept the technology that's offered to you.
We're using this stuff to maintain profitability. The driver behind everything, more or less, is volume, is yield. The margins are so little, and so you got to have scale. To maximize your yield, you got to minimize your infestation of weeds.
In the farming world, it's an ongoing question. How do you do things bigger, better, faster? We want to provide the highest quality of food for the world cheaply, get crops harvested, sent to market in a timely manner. And I learned to become, for lack of a better word, a real evangelist for Roundup. I just thought it was the greatest thing in the world.
I spray all my land before seeding. My first round of spraying, what we call burn-off in the industry, I tend to use about 1 liter an acre. Wash out the jug. So in the spring, I'm going to use somewhere around 6,000 liters. And then in the fall, I spray my stubble fields. There's another 1,000 liters. And I normally grow around 2,000 acres of canola. When I spray the in-crop, I may use another 1,000 liters. And this is Roundup Ready canola.
Most farmers now, you look more like a spaceman than you do a farmer when you're loading the machines. And you're loading these machines every 90 minutes for a week or 2 weeks. And then you're doing it again in the summertime, and then you're doing it again in the fall to bring in your harvest. Being on the front line of using this product, farmers are exposed to it the most for the longest period of time.
They've been spraying for 50 years, my God. This is where I am, right here. Okay, that's where I live. Everything north of here, all this here is sprayed. One time or another. Holy Toledo. The whole chain is affected, not just one little thing. Look at the blueberries there. Beautiful berries. Well, they started off with pack cans back in the 70s. Guys walking around with pack cans. They had it sprayed by hand. Perfect, they're nice. The young kids did that for the summer, paid by the government. Then that graduated to a machine, driving that sprayer, skidder, big tanks there with a pump. There's some nice ones right here. Then that got to be too expensive, and along comes the helicopters. Go around spraying the whole forest where the plantations are, where the poplars are, soft maple, birch, anything with a leaf. You took the forest out of the bush. Now you put in a garden. Your garden is jack pine and spruce. You don't hear no birds singing? You don't see no eagles, no crows, seagulls flying around? Any insect, nothing. It's sterile.
All living organisms are linked in their way of life, and insects are linked in so many ways to their ecosystems and to other organisms. Many of these insects are in interaction with areas where we have pesticide use. And how these pesticides are affecting the life cycles of these different species is something that we don't even know.
The Entomological Society has quite a long history of more than 1 century, studying insects in a scientific way. So we are very focused, for instance, on standardization of trapping technology of insects. And that is the main reason that our data sets can be compared over timelines.
Insects are collected in always the same way. Malaise trap systems are something like a tent, open on both sides, and the roof just ends with an alcohol bottle. In this trap bottle we have ethanol, and inside this ethanol the species are preserved. So the samples are one single insight into one ecosystem within one time period.
Outside of having cancer, that's the worst thing for me is these certain different things that I've learned since I've been in this situation. You are what you eat. You are what you breathe. You are what you're around, your environment. That's bigger than rapping or anything I could probably do with music. You know, we set out to push towards a bigger plateau and a bigger platform to put information out there. And then
typically, in these cases, a reasonably few number of people have to take on these big corporations with these enormous budgets and these giant legal staffs, and it's a David and Goliath type of situation. They're looking for the thing to level the playing field. Well, in this case, it's technology like ours. Initially, when a case begins, there's something called discovery, and that's where parties in the litigation agree to share information under the supervision of the court. Today, with the enormous amount of communications and documents, no set of human beings could possibly read it all or understand it all. And so in order to serve justice, you have to have this superhuman capacity to see things, and the devil is in the details. It's down in all of this morass of communications. And so far in this case, there's about 15 million documents. So it's a lot of material. We use systems of artificial intelligence to study who's talking to who about what and when. We develop these algorithms to look for the things that people say when they're saying something important. For example, detecting when people are upset, or maybe there's doubt. And once we train them on this language, we let the software then study all of the text, all of the communications between people. And that takes you right to the important records very, very quickly. And then human beings can take over.
We don't actually look at all 10 million documents. We look at ones that come up through targeted search. But then we have to make a story of the documents. Within our firm, we organize them by deposition. And we know how Mike likes to take a deposition. And Mike never asks an open-end question. He always wants a document to back it up before he asks it. So the way he does it is he'll ask a question. It'll be related to a document that he doesn't show him. We'll have it in a folder. A lot of times we'll write the question on the outside of the folder. And he'll say, Donna Farmer?
What is your name?
Donna Farmer.
Now, ma'am, as a Monsanto employee and person with your particular skills and expertise, even you, Donna Farmer, cannot say that Roundup does not cause cancer. True.
Roundup does not cause cancer. There's no data that supports that statement.
All right, ma'am. Now, this is a document, a copy of an email sent by you, right, ma'am? Donna Farmer.
Yes.
Okay. And it was sent by you on September 21st, 2009, right?
Yes.
And it's concerning Roundup, right?
Yes.
And in that, you say this: you cannot say that Roundup does not cause cancer. ... We have not done the carcinogenicity studies with Roundup. Did I read that correctly?
When you say we can't, you just said something important. See? When you said the word cancer. Now you combine those together. So if this is a 900-page document, in the front it says we can't, and on page 900 it says cancer, well, that's too far away. It has to be very proximate. People's language is in context. And so we look with a microscope within 100 words of one another. So if you say doubt,
restriction, anger within concept of cancer. Now you're saying something important. Well, that by itself is important, but now put it to an important person, and now it becomes even more important.
The one that shocked me even more was the Perry story. Dr. Perry from England, most renowned genotoxical expert in the world, 4 studies had come out in the public sphere showing that Roundup causes genotoxical damage. That's what causes cancer.
These studies came out in the 90s. There's sort of a growing body of evidence that it's causing damage to DNA, and spurred a lot of concern within Monsanto. So they hired Dr. Perry. Now, Dr. Perry was really a well-respected genotoxicity expert. And the idea was that if they could get this guy on board, then they could use him with regulators and anyone who raises concerns and say, hey, Dr. Perry says it's safe, clearly it's got to be safe.
So it was proposed that Mark Martins, that's you, would contact Dr. Perry and ask him for a written review of the articles by Rank, Bolognese, Peluso, and Lohi, correct?
Correct. So he reads the same studies, and he goes, hey guys, this stuff causes genetic damage by causing oxidative stress. That's what I'm seeing in this data. He goes on to say, based on these studies, here's the questions that I have. And here's what he recommends. So Monsanto's response. They've given him all the data. They've tried to butter him up. What do we got? This is from Dr. Hayden.
Bill Hayden is a toxicologist in the United States, correct?
Yes.
For Monsanto?
Yes.
Correct? Okay. Dr. Hayden goes on to say, we simply aren't going to do the studies that Perry suggests, period. Correct?
That's what he said in the memo, yes.
Okay.
And so, instead of saying, I picked this guy because he's world-renowned, and so he is the person to go to figure this out, and he's telling us we have a problem, we should do this test. And if it's a problem, we need to fix it. But no.
So I am understanding it correctly that no one at Monsanto shared the Perry papers with anyone?
No, it was not shared outside Monsanto.
Instead of submitting that report to the EPA or even giving it to anybody, they ghostwrite an article saying that it's not genotoxic.
Please state your full name.
My name is William Francis Heidens.
Now, you've heard the phrase ghostwriting before, haven't you?
Yes, I have heard that term.
And ghostwriting is considered unethical by scientists, isn't it, sir?
I think you'd have to define what ghostwriting is first before you could decide whether it's unethical or not.
This is Dr. Hayden's, and in this email, he says ghostwrite. He specifically says, we ghostwrite the tox and genotoxin. Add these people's names to the publication, but we would be doing the writing, and they would just edit and sign their name, so to speak. Recall, that's how we handled Williams, Crows, and Monroe 2000. That's an article referenced in all the literature, cited repeatedly. And you see it pop up in the EPA's analysis.
That is, in fact, how you handled Williams, Crows, and Monroe. You wrote it, they edited it, signed it. True.
I must have had bad recall because that is not what happened with Williams, Crows, and Monroe 2000.
Fair to say you told Donna Farmer that you would strangle Dr. Williams if he wanted to rewrite the paper.
Don't recall having said that.
Exhibit 3:26. You did say that, didn't you, Doctor?
I did put that in this email.
They say, this is in 2010, Williams has served us well in toxicology over the last decade. They create the science and then cite to it.
We knew that it caused cancer, but we didn't know the emails that were there. We didn't know that Monsanto knew. We didn't know that they have lied. We didn't know they affirmatively hid the truth. We didn't know that they buried studies. We didn't know they refused to study. We didn't know any of this. And this isn't something new. Roundup was built on fraud. In the 1970s, they had a test done by IBT Labs to prove that it was safe. And then they find out that that was fraudulent. A Monsanto employee was going back and forth between IBT Labs and Monsanto. His name was Paul Wright. And Paul Wright actually goes to prison for his role in this. So then the EPA says to Monsanto, redo this test. And so they come up with this test called Knesevich and Hogan. They submit the results to the EPA. And the EPA says, this looks like it's a possible carcinogen. We're going to label it as a category C possible carcinogen. And there's all these internal memos typewriter written. How do we get this off category C? This is going to ruin Roundup. How do we change this? And then what they say is, short of finding a tumor in the control group, how do we move this off category C? And so they hire Dr. Marvin Kushner, and before he ever even receives the slides, it's determined that he is going to find a tumor in the control group to defend Roundup to the EPA. Lo and behold, Dr. Kushner finds a tumor in the control group. Finding a tumor in the control group changed the statistical significance of the other tumors. And the important thing is the original study was fraudulent, the second study found that it was cancerous, and every single mouse study since that one has found malignant lymphomas. It's found the kind of cancer that our clients have.
We have 40 years of history of glyphosate and Roundup. We have so many instances of misconduct.
The Monsanto papers showed us all those things.
And so the longer this litigation goes on, the more we're going to find.
As more information comes into the case, the algorithms get better and better and better. The knives get sharper and sharper and sharper instead of dull. The more they're used, the sharper they become. So that the knowledge of the case begins to coalesce.
We were startled by what we were finding. And Brent and Michael wanted to get it out in a hurry right away for the benefit of the world.
To do what we could to declassify documents we got in discovery.
But we were under a protective order. We were not allowed to disclose those documents.
We could challenge documents, and then Monsanto was required within 14 days to come meet with us.
When we finally got to the meet and confer, they said, we're not going to meet and confer on this.
And I say, okay, so we agree then, we don't have an agreement on this. Nope.
And that was a signal to them that if they want to maintain the confidentiality of those documents, they have to file something.
30 days after the initial challenge, they had to file a motion with the court or the confidentiality would be automatically waived.
And they didn't.
I think, okay, maybe I miscalendared it. Do I count the first day or the second day? So I waited 31 days. Nothing. So on the 32nd day, I sent the documents to the world.
Became the news they are today.
I mean, there were a lot of decisions being made around the world about the use of Roundup at the time. And the world needed to know that they were being subjected to a PR campaign.
Of all the things that we've done, I feel like the release of the Monsanto papers has really had kind of monumental impact. I'm going to put together a story that has come out, maybe wasn't clearly explained. That's Jess Rowland. What do we know about Jess Rowland?
Jesse. He's an EPA employee, and we had found emails in the Monsanto documents, the Monsanto papers, where Jesse's doing things that EPA employees are not supposed to do.
At this time, the ATSDR decided to run a review on glyphosate. This is an email. It's in evidence. And it's from Daniel Jenkins. It's to William Haydens And here's what Jenkins says. So Jess called me out of the blue this morning. This is Jess Rowland. And here's what he says. Jess called to ask for a contact name at ATSDR, saying, quote, if I can kill this, I should get a medal. This is the person in the EPA, the person who's supposed to be looking out for our health, bragging to a Monsanto employee that he's going to kill something, another person's investigation of it. And if he does it, he should get a medal.
And Jesse, I guess, got his medal because he squashed it.
Why does Monsanto get special treatment from the EPA? I don't know. Maybe it's Jess Rowland. Maybe there's something more sinister. I don't know. But what I do know is they got it wrong.
This agency that was supposed to be set up to protect the environment in the wake of a silent spring is really working for the industry it was created to protect us from.
That's who they talk to every single day. And they work together to compromise. And the compromise, 90% of the time, goes in favor of the corporation.
EPA has been captured by industry. And until they get uncaptured, we're just not going to get them to protect us. They're going to protect the industries that they regulate.
How do you beat that? Right? How do you overcome that, cartel?
These huge corporations have such access to EPA, and you and I don't. Right? Citizens don't really have, we can't really go to EPA and say, you know what you're doing to our environment, to insects, to people. They don't have that access.
And under exposure guidelines, what does this MSDS tell you?
No specific occupational exposure limit has been established.
Under skin protection, could you read us what it tells you to do there?
No special requirement when used is recommended. If repeated or prolonged contact, wear chemical-resistant gloves.
And under respiratory protection, what does it tell you?
No special requirement when used is recommended.
You see where it says carcinogenicity?
Yes.
What does it say under carcinogenicity?
Not carcinogenic in rats or mice.
Okay. Again, did you rely on these sections when you were using this product?
Yes.
Okay.
Let's get outside. This is where I had my first big accident. Right here, I'll show you exactly the crack that my hose got caught in. So that hose got down, look at that crack. So that hose got caught down in there. So when I pulled my truck, you heard it go, pow! The hose is off the truck, the motor's pumping, boom, 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 boom. And this thing is, it's a fountain of Ranger Pro coming out of the back of my little pickup truck with the little Honda motor, and it's fountaining out. And the only way for me to turn it off is for me to reach into the back. I have my Tyvek suit on, but of course this thing is showering me. It's getting down in my Tyvek, it's getting over my face, it's getting everywhere, but it's also getting in the truck bed, and there's a drain down there you can see. And that was my main concern, is that if this stuff keeps going, it's gonna drain, and you can see the water from here. I got it all over me, down in my suit, in my gloves, everywhere. And I went back to the shop, changed my shirt. I left the pants on to have any other trousers. And I cleaned up and I went back to work.
Now, let me take a couple minutes to talk about IARC. So, IARC is an organization that looks at and reports on lots of different things and determines carcinogenicity in a way, in their special way.
Its sole mission is to convene independent experts to evaluate and assess chemicals to see if they cause cancer. It's called a monograph program. They get all these scientists together, they study all the science that's available, and then they get together for a week in France, going through systematically every study, assessing its validity.
They actually argue. They'll go back and forth with each other and argue about the quality of the science and then reach a decision.
In the Manual for Scientific Evidence that every federal judge and probably state judge refers to, they call IARC the gold standard. And this is a book that judges have on their bench at court to help guide them on science issues.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the invitation to be here. This is probably not news to anyone in this room, but IARC classified glyphosate as probably carcinogenic to humans. IARC evaluations rely on data that are in the public domain for independent scientific review. You can look at these studies, you can understand how we judge them. This is essential for transparency. And these reviews are done by the world's leading experts without vested interest. And this is essential for independence. So the scientific process is formal. It's what we call structured expert judgment. So we have 3 lines of evidence, and these are first evaluated individually, and they're brought together in a very formal way.
At the end of the second spraying season, Mr. Johnson discovered a lesion on his knee. Wasn't sure what it was. Starts spreading and spreading, and he goes to the doctor. He's finally diagnosed in October of 2014, and this is what he looked like. You can see by October 2014, it was covering his whole body.
It was pretty sad just to hear them say that I had cancer, because as soon as they tell you that, they give you that look like you can die. You know what I mean? Or how long you might live or whatever. So I was really scared. I was really confused. I really didn't know what to do.
When I first heard the word cancer, literally my whole world just shut down.
And the first thing that Mr. Johnson does is he doesn't call a lawyer. He calls Monsanto. We know because this is actually a document from Monsanto. This is a conversation. Spoke with Dueyne Johnson, and this is his story. He's just trying to find out if it could be related to such a large exposure to Ranger Pro. He's just looking for answers.
Dr. Goldstein's response is short. He says, that doesn't make sense to me. Does that show that Monsanto believed that glyphosate-based products cause cancer? No. Dr. Goldstein says, I will call him.
Don't recall having spoken with him. It would be my custom and practice to try and do so, and I've seen documents that indicate that I had an intention to do so, but I don't recall a conversation.
Did that happen?
No.
Did anybody else from Monsanto, Patricia Beal or any other Monsanto employee ever call you back?
Objection asked and answered.
I never received a phone call from anyone from Monsanto.
No one called him back. Dr. Goldstein never reached out to him. And so he just keeps using it. And it gets worse and worse and worse.
The studies of cancer in humans, as I said, provided limited evidence. There was sufficient evidence of cancer in animals, and there was strong evidence for mechanisms that we know to be associated with carcinogens. And overall, this led the working group to classify glyphosate in group 2A, probably carcinogenic to humans. So I want to thank you very much for your attention, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have about our evaluation.
IARC is an incredibly well-respected organization, and it's independent. So Monsanto had a problem, and Monsanto went into its unbelievably intense, powerful attack mode. They had these strategic planning meetings within Monsanto. There's lots of emails and memos and PowerPoints, and it goes on and on and on. And that kicked in before IARC ever even met. Countries are now saying they're not going to fund the monograph program anymore, and so it could possibly go away. And if it does, it is Monsanto's sole fault that that happens.
Large part of your responsibilities at Monsanto involved media response to the 2015 IR classification of glyphosate, correct?
Yes.
Has Monsanto allocated millions of dollars to responding to the IR classification?
Yes. This is more the the things that rose to the top as possibilities as part of our overall brainstorming on the topic.
And you wrote, sir, on animal data cited by IARC, there will be a manuscript to be initiated by Monsanto as ghostwriter, right, sir?
That is written there, that's true, but...
What you say is, majority of writing can be done by Monsanto, keeping the cost down.
I can only speak within the context of public affairs activities, things that I would have been directly involved in. But in 2016, I believe for some of the projects I was involved in, it was around 16 or 17 million.
In an explosive new report, documents reveal that Monsanto ran a fusion center to surveil and discredit journalists and activists, as well as legendary singer-songwriter Neil Young, who released an album in 2015 called The Monsanto Years. For more, we're joined in Kansas City, Missouri by Carrie Gillum.
They have engaged in smear campaigns against numerous scientists, numerous journalists around the world, and they do it through these third-party strategies so that it looks like it's coming from a more authentic, more valid, independent source.
I had a budget line in the proposed budget to continue to support ACSH in relation to IARC.
Right, and what does that stand for again?
The American Council on Science and Health, I believe.
These are the same people that helped defend the tobacco companies and the same people that helped defend the lead companies, right?
They had taken positions in the past on some of those issues that I do not fully agree with. That is correct.
Yes, sir.
This is an argument for continued funding. I was making the case that we needed to support ACSH.
And in fact, you were able to persuade your bosses to provide that ongoing support to ACSH, and they in fact did write scientific pieces about the IARC decision on glyphosate, right?
That is correct, yes.
They've gone after individual scientists who have been part of IARC and particularly who are part of 112, and they've made it extraordinarily personal.
The personal attacks on me came from individuals that I can't say are tied to Monsanto or Bayer. I don't know how to defend myself against those arguments other than to say, let's talk about the science. I'll be happy to defend my opinion.
This is what he looked like in March 2015. It's on his head, you can see it's breaking. We got plaques all over his body, lesions on his arms and legs. And as we know, the story goes on, the cancer gets worse. He's scared, he's frightened at this point. So what does he do? He calls again. He describes in detail that he's been using it for his job. I'm not going to read all this, but he states he continues to get unexplained rashes and nodules all over his body. The caller's level of fear is rising over his continued use of Ranger Pro. This is March 27, 2015, 2 weeks after the IARC decision. Monsanto knows that IARC has concluded it's a substance that can cause this type of cancer. So at this point, he's still spraying.
And somebody said they was gonna call him back, and nobody never called him. Why didn't you guys call him? Oh, we just never got around to it or whatever. We don't call people back and tell them that our stuff is gonna give them cancer. You wanna know if it's gonna give them cancer or not. We weren't gonna call them back and say, yeah. So they didn't call me back, and now I know why. Because they couldn't call back and say, nah, man, you're perfectly safe.
So even if you'd have talked to Lee Johnson, you would not have told him to stop using Ranger Pro?
No, I would not.
Think he could use it tomorrow? That'd be good? That'd be okay?
Yes.
before this illness, I had pretty much flawless skin. Always clean, always fresh outfits, stuff like that. I was the pretty boy all the time, trying to be fresh for the ladies, you know? So that's something of the past. I had a bad time getting coverage. I got kicked off the health care after I stopped working for the Venetian Unified School District. So for Ra, I had no health care. So yeah, I was in a really bad state. My boys, they saw the effects, they saw the markings, they saw me limping around, they saw me get sicker and sicker. You know, so I had to go ahead and tell them so they would know from me what was going on. I told them that I had, you know, cancer. We used to go out and go to the parks and go to the pool or go swimming or go to the beach. So yeah, they missed out on a lot of stuff.
He's a wonderful dad. Like I said, he's more of a mom than a dad. Yeah. He does little things for them, which is wonderful. Yeah, he loves his kids. I want them to take advantage of this time. I don't think they understand.
Happy birthday. Happy birthday, dearly. Happy birthday.
How they're gonna feel when dad is not here. And I do worry, do I have enough time to explore the world with him? How many birthdays is he gonna be here with the kids? Is he gonna be here for graduation?
Thousands and thousands and thousands of people have been hurt.
Their side effects, you don't get off free with the kind of chemo that we had.
Sometimes I had upwards of 7 IVs.
10 bags a day.
I had 20 treatments of radiation as well.
I lost 35 pounds.
Al came in and thought I was dead.
I'm sitting here 45 years old. Feel like I'm 90. Because some Roundup.
And so how do you help thousands of people?
She got sick, I got sick, both our dogs died. As I said, my response was, there must be something in the air.
What caused me to get this rare form of cancer?
In the US, you know, we've essentially shifted that obligation to the litigation system.
One day I was watching a commercial and it came by and it was like, hold up.
Attention. Recent studies show that Roundup and other weed killers containing glyphosate can cause non-Hodgkin lymphoma and other forms of cancer.
There's a friend of mine who saw the early ads.
When I saw that flash on the TV, I kind of made all those connections.
The light went off.
He says, I use that stuff all the time, like crazy.
I used Roundup. I used it a lot. Oh my gosh, I'm heavily exposed to all this all the time.
In the absence of sufficient regulation, sufficient oversight, good systems of corporate governance, okay, thoughtful and ethical conduct of business, and in the absence and failure along that way, the only system we have is the courts. And this is where you're into mass torts. If it weren't for people that are willing to put the money up to fund these cases, then even though there are these courts, nobody could afford to individually fight these giant, you know, multinationals.
This lady who's my personal lawyer, who I went to her and I said, I had a situation that I want to take this company to court and blah, 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 won't you. And at first she thought about it and she talked to me about it a few times, and then she just said, you know, I can't handle that.
Imagine a single person having to shoulder the expense of putting this case together. It would be impossible.
Getting Mr. Johnson's case to trial, you're talking millions of dollars.
We all have to contribute money to support the database and paying the experts and stuff like that.
Everyone on the plaintiff side takes major financial risk.
You know, Baum Hedlund, we went into debt. And I don't mean a little bit of debt.
The contingency fee is the poor man or the working man's key to the courthouse. We say to these people, if you have a good case that I believe in, that I think I can help you at, we're going to get you your day in court. You don't have to pay me unless I prevail. I'm going to take a percentage, maybe it's a third, maybe it's 40% of whatever we collect for you.
When you're successful, there's a lot of money to be made. But in that sort of unseemly ambulance-chasing paradigm, there are certain lawyers who are actually trying to change the world.
We have developed an incredible expertise in Roundup, and clients benefit from that.
Them already having information and research that I had no idea, never knew about, never thought about, and just to hook up with these people that's already ahead of the game and fighting these folks for years, can't go better.
I would say 70% of our farm focuses on Roundup.
Gotta have.
Are we repeating that again?
No, this is the Kushner
Okay,
tumor. Magic
okay.
tumor.
And you're going to call it the Kushner tumor?
Kushner tumor.
I mean, I'll tell you this, farmer has become more polished as the litigation has come along.
All the deposition prep work.
I've been a lawyer for over 30 years.
Well, I would say those logistics.
And I have only, my whole entire career, sued corporations. That's all I've done. I've done it with the government, I've done it nonprofit, I've done it in this firm. And I don't see changes in corporate behavior.
You know, I can't force the EPA to do anything. I can't force the government to do anything. But I can force Monsanto to pay, and I can hopefully put pressure on other people to make those changes.
I've done 70 of these multi-district litigations. At some point in time, you know, you think to yourself, my gosh, there has to be a better way than this.
In my next life, I'm doing something different is all I can tell you. Me too.
You hear Monsanto saying, you know, we're not going to change the label. We're not going to warn people, no matter what. Then what's the point of all this?
It's one of the things that people ask me is that, what is it that I want, you know? And I want the label to be changed. I know we can live without pesticides. Yeah, I know that. How they want to treat the food that we eat. That's scary.
Roundup is very, very prevalent as a desiccant. And the reason desiccants became so popular is that, you know, it kills the plant. And then the plant dries. Then you could straight cut it, which was quite a labor-saving operation. But the thing is, for the plant to die using Roundup, that means the plant's absorbed it. You can't get away from that. The residue is in the seed, and if we use that seed for food production, then it's in the food.
When they sprayed, it changed the whole environment. I got it here. Then it affects everything else. Everything else. So I got a plan. Honey. Honey. Bonjour. But there's 21 First Nations in this territory. Hi, darling. They have to give us the go-ahead to speak on their behalf.
The Creator made everything, and we got to do something about all this here, and that's why we're here.
It's going into the ground, and it's almost also damaging our four medicines.
All the plant lives, all the medicines, and everything that exists. All the insects are dying, even the birds are dying.
I think you need to pray for the insects.
And I see all this.
So when you're talking about the spray, it's devastating.
Insect decline is nothing new. A large number of insects are declining since the 1950s. But we had a large number of investigations, we had a large number of biomass data, and this biomass data shows us around about 76% decline within our samples from 1989 to 2016.
Really serious losses of biomass, abundance and diversity during these 3 decades.
50 years of aerial spraying and destroying our environment. How much, what's the cost on that? We can put a cost, but Canada will never afford it. Both federal and provincial government. There's not enough money. You don't print enough money. It's got to stop. You're the only ones who can make it stop. Keane went. The elders are the power of the country. I always remember that. Keane, are you ready to look after our own territory? Show of hands, please.
Biggest takeover of the year. Bayer is buying Monsanto. The price tag $66 billion,
creating the largest seed and agrochemical company on earth.
Monsanto made a choice to not put a cancer warning on the label. That is a choice that reflects reckless disregard for human health. It is a choice that Monsanto made, and today is their day of reckoning. Every single cancer risk that has been found had this moment. Every single one. Where the science finally caught up. Where they couldn't bury it anymore. Where the truth got shown to 12 people sitting in a jury box making a true and honest decision. And that is this day.
You walked into that jury room and you saw what it was like. You heard how many people said they couldn't be fair to my client. Couldn't be fair to Monsanto. They couldn't put prejudice aside. They couldn't put bias aside. They couldn't put sympathy aside. But you were the ones that all said you could do that.
Right now, Miss Buck, she's sitting over there in that corner. On her cell phone is a speed dial to a conference room in St. Louis, Missouri. And in that conference room, in that boardroom, there's a bunch of executives waiting for the phone to ring. Behind them is a bunch of champagne on ice. They want to see.
Supposed to be about the evidence. This is complete fantasy.
Same. The number that you have to come out with is a number that tells those people, they hear it, and they have to put the phone down, look at each other and say, we have to change what we're doing. Because if the number comes out and it's not significant enough, champagne corks are popping. Attaboys are everywhere. They're laughing at you.
The human evidence, which is the best evidence, tells you that glyphosate doesn't cause cancer. The human evidence tells you that nobody who medically has cared for Mr. Johnson or who is a doctor in this area believes that mycosis fungoides is caused by glyphosate. The animal testing, the cell testing, they're fine to do, and you should consider them because they don't show glyphosate caused cancer either. But consider them all. Consider all the evidence. Consider that the regulators, the EPA, the European regulators, all disagree. And remember that IARC is doing something different.
And when you return a verdict, we're going to make it right. And your verdict will be heard around the world. And Monsanto will have to finally do something. Conduct those studies they never conducted and warn those people they never warned. Thank you for your time.
I remember the night before the verdict, and it had set in to me that if I lose this case tomorrow, which has been the next day, that not only am I going to lose, but the people that's standing behind me right now, and I think at that point it was already 25,000 or 15,000 waiting to see how my case went. I got really concerned, like if I lose, these people won't ever get a chance to even tell their story.
This is the most widely used pesticide in the world, I believe. And so how do you stop that juggernaut?
That was like 5 days before he passed away.
Yeah, because he could still see then.
I have the necklace I made him. He wore it every day, every night. He slept with it on. He took showers with it. He never took it off.
They should not do people like that just to make some money. You know, people's lives on the line.
I'm a big capitalist, but it makes you pretty angry that that companies that are knowing this is doing things to people, and they just keep producing it.
Why hide things from people? I mean, why not just be open and honest, and then we could make the decision or not to be exposed to it or not.
Just warning people so they have a choice to make, because I didn't have a choice.
It doesn't matter the amount of money. It's not going to be enough because you just can't put a price tag on it.
Money is fine, but if I can have my health, that'd be beautiful.
There are people that are dying, and there's people that are, hurt very badly from this, and, you can't ignore that. They got to stop saying it's safe,
We followed the guidelines, and I'll be damned if corporations can't follow those same guidelines.
You could say to me, well, why didn't you stop using it? Well, it's too late now. Having been diagnosed with the cancer that I have, which is a non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, this is, 7 years later since I found it. It's been referred to as a farmer disease. It's almost to the point of not whether you get it, it's when you get it. Do I have plans to change? Probably not. I think we've got to look at these things from a bigger picture. And this applies not just to Roundup. It applies to a whole bunch of other things.
There was 12 treatments for me, and
I'm considered cancer-free right now. What doesn't go away are the side effects. The oncologist had a choice between a drug that possibly would cause another cancer or a drug that possibly would affect my heart. And it's kind of a sad moment, but you know, it did affect my heart. Permanent heart damage. And if it wasn't for my family taking over the farm and doing the farm work literally on this farm, there's no way that this farm would have got as far as it did. Now we try to avoid using Roundup as much as possible. We need to have the natural funguses and bacteria in the soil. We need to have the natural pollinators. We need to have the birds. We need to have all of these things. And once you interrupt part of it, you interrupt all of it. This isn't something that is on the label, but this is something that is very real that we're all dealing with because we've interrupted that for 20 years here. Now we're trying to get it back.
We now have a large number of studies showing us this biodiversity decline, and not only in insects. So if we don't have a stable system of biodiversity, then we will have a larger number of problems. Biodiversity is the base for our life.
Where do you see this? It's swollen, see? I think that's what really gives me a hard time walking. But as long as I have a bandage on there, it keeps it together. So every step is not as bad as it should feel. Once I get off this foot at the end of this week, I'm hopefully get more radiation on this foot, so it could resemble. It's a little different than the other one, huh? Let's see soon. Some of this stuff hurts to touch, but it feels better with the oil in there than without. Just trying to keep this stuff soft as possible. And I have to put a barrier in between my clothes a lot, so I'm not ruining every shirt that I have. Sitting around when you get in that doom and gloom mode, you know, when you don't have anything to do, you start thinking about the reality of life. You start thinking about how bad it is for you and what you're going through and the disease and the pain, and it becomes all you think about. It consumes you.
I will now read the verdict in the matter of Dueyne Johnson, plaintiff versus Monsanto Company, defendant. We, the jury, answer the questions submitted to us as follows. With the claim of design defect. 1. Are the Roundup Pro or Ranger Pro products ones about which an ordinary consumer can form reasonable minimum safety expectations? Answer, yes. Did Roundup Pro or Ranger Pro fail to perform as safely? Answer, yes. Was the Roundup Pro or Ranger Pro design a substantial factor? Answer, yes. Causing harm, have potential risks that were known or knowable? Answer, yes. Present a substantial danger to persons using or answer, yes. Pro or Ranger Did Monsanto fail to adequately warn? Answer, yes. Was the lack of sufficient warnings? Answer, yes. Did Monsanto know or should it reasonably answer, yes. Answer, yes. Answer, yes. Yes. Monsanto acted with malice or oppression in the conduct. Answer, yes. Ratified or authorized by one or more officers. Answer, yes. What amount of punitive damages, if any, do you award to Mr. Johnson? Answer, $250 million.
Breaking news on a lawsuit against Monsanto.
A landmark judgment against agriculture giant Monsanto.
Buyer shares plunged earlier after newly acquired Monsanto was hit with $289 million in damages.
The jury deliberated for 3 days before finding Monsanto had failed to warn Johnson and other consumers of the cancer risks posed by its weed killers.
There's a working class guy who followed all the rules, who went through all the training, who wore all the protective equipment, called the 800 line when he thought there were problems. He did everything that he was supposed to have done and still got screwed in the process.
It was shocking, and I feel very proud of him. That sad that it has to be this way, but there was a change.
And it was just a very emotional situation because we couldn't explain any of this during the trial. We just felt so strongly that what he was going through was enormous.
It could set precedent for thousands of cases just like these.
It is the first among thousands of other similar cases across the country.
$80 million awarded today to a Sonoma County man suing Monsanto for his cancer.
There is no question Roundup causes cancer, and Monsanto needs to come clean once and for all.
Just a fraction of the more than $2 billion awarded to a married couple from California.
All this money is really nice, but our health would have been better.
What's up, guys? What's up, man?
I'm just tired of being sick, bro. Tired of being SICK.
Yeah, 1, 2. Let's do this, man. I'm in a fight with the monster. It's the fight you don't want to be in, my man. I mean, it's a toe-to-toe, blow-for-blow type situation, if you know what I mean. Everything's on the line. I mean, saw me on the evening news, posted with my lawyer crew. They really didn't comprehend what we came to do.
I would say 80% of our clients say, I just want the public to know so nobody ends up using this product without knowing that it can cause illness, and that if they're going to use it still, they should protect themselves.
First try, no lies, so we got it right. No really, I'm being too fancy. Now I'm waiting on appeals, short a couple of $100 million. Oh, let me bring it back. I gotta be cool on. Did winning feel good? Yeah, felt out of sight. Saw me on the evening news, posted with my lawyer crew. They really didn't comprehend what we came to do. First try, no lies, so we got it right. Did winning feel good? Yeah, felt out of sight. There to punch that. This just boom, another track.
The California judge is upholding a jury's verdict that found Monsanto's weed killer Roundup caused a groundskeeper's cancer. In denying the company's request for a new trial, the judge slashed the money that man will get from $250 million to $78 million.
Even that number is on appeal.
You'll come in and I like to lay low. I like to lay low, I'm a family man, but don't mind stepping out every now and then. One more time, same spot. I still be on the move, from LA to the Bay, letting it do what it do. Ooh, I'm starting to feel this. Let's just go from the top, I'm starting to feel it. Saw me on the evening news, posted with my lawyer crew. They really didn't comprehend what we came to do. First try, no lies, so we got it right. Did winning feel good? Yeah, it felt out of sight. Now I'm waiting on appeals, short a couple of $100 million. And I don't really know how to tell you how that feel, but let me keep it on the real. I don't have no money yet, no Lambo, no Rambo, no Corvette.
The company that makes Roundup has agreed to pay consumers $10 billion to settle lawsuits.
Our shareholders are relieved. We are very confident that Roundup is a safe compound that does not cause cancer.
Obstacle course, life short. One more time. Obstacle course, life's not fair. Lattice greased, you ain't feeling peeling. Gotta change the sheets. Can't work, gotta turn it the heat. Can't feel my feet. Trying to make it to next week.
Does it change corporate behavior? Oh, you're talking to someone who's a bit negative on corporate behavior. I don't think so.
Until you get certain corporate actors to pay more, you're probably going to have repeat behavior.
And next time they might be more careful with what they put in emails, so it'll be even harder to prove.
Gotta stand up and fight monsters.
I like that one. All right. Yep, let's go from the top. Straight all the way through that whole 6. Yo, I'm in a fight with the monster wearing army fatigues, creating a whole new league when you messing with Lee. I'm in a battle with the monster, but I will not lose. I give him back all the money if my health I could choose. I went from having perfect skin to being scarred like a war vet. And I ain't even tell you about the pain yet. That felt good. That was nicer. Yeah, that was more kickback. We listening? Okay.
Bayer is removing glyphosate from its lawn and garden Roundup products. The move is expected to happen by 2023. 90% of the suits stem from lawn and garden formulations. Glyphosate will still be available for agriculture. The company will look for new registrations on consumer products using what it calls well-established active ingredients.
I am in a fight with the monster, but I did not die. I am in a fight with the monster, but I'm still alive. I am in a fight with the monster, but I'm still alive. I am in a fight with the monster, and I will survive.